Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention some of my socials in the description of the video. If you want to support the channel, please check those out. If you want to support the channel in other ways, please consider just dropping a like or a nice comment somewhere on the video. It really helps the algorithm push our content out there to a broader audience. With that being said, hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to take a look at Mistweaver Monk in the War Within. This is going to be sort of my, air quotes here, official guide for Mistweaver Monk, at least for Season 1. So I'm going to try to cover absolutely everything in this one guide. I know not everybody will end up seeing this guide. So what I'll do is I'll kind of break it out into various parts throughout the season and just kind of expand on things as, as I learn them and as we get more information about Mistweaver as the season goes on. So quick disclaimer here, this guide is only for Mythic Plus. This is not a raiding guide. Now you can take some stuff here and take it into raid, especially some of the core baseline stuff behind Mistweaver Monk, but for the most part, this is just going to be a Mythic Plus guide. And this is just how I play Mistweaver Monk. This isn't necessarily like the absolute meta way. Everything I say here is 100% efficiency. This is just how I play it specifically. So hopefully, you can watch 2, 3, 4 other guides and find a style that fits your play style the best. So let's just quickly go over some of the changes that Mistweaver Monk did receive going into War Within. First things first is Zen Pulse was reworked, so it's no longer like a casted ability. And this is actually now triggered through our Vivify spell. Just to read it out here, Renewing Mist Heal every time effect has a chance to cause your next Vivify to also trigger a Zen Pulse on its target and all allies with Renewing Mist. So this is going to incentivize us to spread out Renewing Mist to as many targets as we possibly can. And this will heal them for X amount. And then this will increase by 6% per Renewing Mist active up to 30%. So basically, you want to have a Renewing Mist on every target that you can. Then as you pump in Vivifies, you will get some increased healing through Zen Pulse. And then we also did have Essence Font completely removed from the game. This is pretty good because Essence Font was kind of an awkward ability. It didn't do a whole bunch for us. Sometimes it would give us like a specific stat buff. It had a channel time behind it, not much throughput. A lot of times people did use it to actually reset their Jadefire Stomp as well, but it just didn't really flow with how Mistweaver plays super well, so they decided to remove it from the game. Then we also had Upwelling, Font of Life, and Clouded Focus removed from the game as well. We did also get our Season 4 tier bonus put in as a talent. A lot of different specs did see something very similar. So Renewing Mist increases your target's healing received from you by 50% for the first 8 seconds of its duration. So this is basically another reason that we want to incentivize spreading out as many Renewing Mist as possible, because this will also work really well with our Zen Pulse. So if a target has Renewing Mist, they get 50% more healing from you. Very strong. Another reason I incentivize Renewing Mist to be spread out to all targets at all times is because just type in the word Renewing Mist here and you can see how many nodes that just synergize with this spell. So it's a very core ability in our kit. And that's one of the main takeaways from this video. I don't want to say it's the main takeaway, but it's one of them. It's one of the main points of this video is to spread out Renewing Mist to all of your targets. Now on the flip side of this, we did also get Lotus Infusion. So allies with Renewing Mist receive 8% more healing from you, and Renewing Mist durations increased by 2%. So we'd rather just have Chi Harmony. And the reason that I think Chi Harmony is going to be stronger and we don't want this increased duration, because I personally, this is one of the nodes that's kind of up for debate here, but I personally play Pull a Mist, so I can get 3 charges of Renewing Mist. So let's read out Pull a Mist here. This is also a new talent that we have. Renewing Mist has 3 charges and reduces the remaining cooldown of Rising Sun Kick by 1 second. And then Rising Sun Kick now reduces the remaining cooldown of Renewing Mist by 1 second. So basically what we can do is ditch Lotus Infusion and get increased healing through Chi Harmony, and then we just have to focus a little bit more on keeping Renewing Mist up. Then the final new talent that I want to talk about here is going to be Crane Style. So Rising Sun Kick now kicks up a Gust of Mist to heal 2 allies within 40 yards, and then Spinning Crane Kick and Blackout Kick have a chance to kick up a Gust of Mist to heal 1 ally within 40 yards. So if you're not familiar with what Gust of Mist is, this is basically going to be our mastery here. There we go, finally got it pulled up. So basically whenever we go through our normal damage rotation, we don't really have a rotation, but when we go through our healing and damaging spells, you have a chance to proc our Mastery Gust of Mist, which will do a small amount of healing. And I do say that this is a small amount of healing, but over the course of a dungeon, this will be a pretty significant portion of your output. Then Monk in general did get a complete overhaul to their other tree over here, the class tree. So lots of nodes that have been moved around, just like a lot of quality of life changes. One thing that I will talk about here is the lighter than air talent. So lighter than air roll causes you to become lighter than air, allowing you to double jump to dash forward a short distance once within 5 seconds, but the cooldown of roll is increased by 2 seconds. So basically, when you roll and then you jump, you'll do a short dash. So it's like almost like 2 rolls in one, basically. And then we can also pair this with something like Celerity, which will reduce the cooldown of roll by 5 seconds and increase its number of charges by 1. So that will give us 3 charges of roll. And then once you pair that with lighter than air, it's almost like getting 6 charges of roll. So just to briefly show you what that looks like here, let's just see if we can dash the other side of the room. So we can roll, dash, roll, dash, roll, dash. So it's almost like we just rolled 6 times right there. All right, so in terms of changes, that's all I'm going to cover for now. Let's go ahead and talk about our hero talents. So in the hero talents, we have 2 different trees. We have Master of Harmony and Conduit of the Celestials. So right now, Conduit of Celestials is performing much better than Master of Harmony. So we'll cover this one first. It's Conduit of Celestials. You get the Celestial Conduit here on a 1.5 minute cooldown. And basically what it's going to do is a Celestial is going to basically empower you, and you're going to radiate a bunch of healing and damage out to your party. So just to briefly show you what this looks like, you basically will levitate over the ground. You'll do a small channel here, and that will do a bunch of damage and healing that will radiate out. Then down here at the bottom of the tree, we have something called Unity Within. And basically what this does is you can recast this a second time to just do a bunch of burst damage and burst healing. But if for whatever reason you don't recast it during its channel, it will automatically recast at the end of its channel. So basically at the end of the channel, this recast again at 200% effectiveness for a big burst of damage and healing. Then one other thing I want to talk about here is Courage of the White Tiger and how this basically works with Strength of the Black Ox. So whenever we Tiger Palm or Vivify, the Schwinn Tiger is going to come out. It's going to assist us. It's going to do damage. And when it does damage, it will heal an ally. So that portion is very passive, but we can also control this with our Yulon the Jade Serpent or our Invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane. So when we press one of those 2 buttons, basically our next cast guarantees that Schwinn will come out and assist us. So that portion is not necessarily all that important, but this next portion won't make much sense if you didn't understand how this works. So after Schwinn assists you, which is what we just talked about, your next Enveloping Mist cast time is reduced by 50%, and then we'll also get an Absorb Shield to 5 nearby allies for 5% of our maximum health. So that Absorb Shield is going to be through our Enveloping Mist. So you can see here, I did get some charges on our Enveloping Mist. You can see it's glowing, and then when I cast it, you see in the top right here, I've got Strength of the Black Ox absorbing some damage. And the reason this is key, we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get into the rotation, but when you do get these empowered Enveloping Mists, it's very important to put them out because we get an Absorb Shield out of it as well. So not only do we get the healing from Enveloping Mist, the heal over time from Enveloping Mist, we're also going to get an Absorb Shield out of it. So that's all I'm going to talk about in hero talents for now. I could talk about this for literally an hour, all the different talents here, but just know that Conduit of Celestials is what we're running at the moment. I will make a new guide if this ends up changing over to Master of Harmony, but right now this is not, Master of Harmony is not even coming close to Conduit of Celestials. Okay, let's quickly talk about secondary stats. So we have Haste, Critical Strike, Mastery, and Versatility. So I'm in the middle of gearing my character right now, so my stats are all over the place, but typically we're going to be focusing on Haste. And the reason for that is the heal over time tick rate, we get a lower GCD, and then, just faster general casts overall. So Haste overall is going to give us the most throughput. So you want to stack that. And then we also have Critical Strike right above it here. And this is going to be very strong because just raw healing, raw damage, and then also our Mana Tea scales through Critical Strike. So if you look at Mana Tea here, you can see in the passive portion with a chance equal to your Critical Strike chance to gain 1 extra stack. So the more Critical Strike we have, Kind of similar to like a Restoration Shaman. The more crit you have, the more mana you get back. Then the third stat we're going to talk about is our Mastery here, Gust of Mist, that we kind of already talked about already, but this is a very passive form of healing. And again, this will be a pretty decent overall chunk of your healing. You can see I did just a normal dungeon here, but you can see my Gust of Mist there did a 9% of my total overall healing. And then our final stat here that we're going to talk about is versatility. So this is just going to be a flat increase to our damage and healing done. This is also going to reduce damage that we take. And the final thing to talk about here, I guess one more thing is that intellect, or your primary stat, is going to take precedence over any sort of secondary stat. This is where you will see the most throughput in stats is going to be from just raw intellect. Okay, let's kind of talk about our spells and our rotation together all in one. We can kind of utilize the talent tree a little bit too, so we can get a deeper understanding of what's going on and how Mistweaver Monk plays. The first thing to talk about here is going to be Renewing Mist on a 9-second recharge here. And we've already kind of talked about this already, but we have so many talents that synergize with Renewing Mist. So this is something that you want to be able to track. And this is something that you want to always have up on as many targets as you possibly can. So I personally run the Pull of Mist talent so that I'll get 3 charges of this. And then we also run Chi Harmony so that we can get 50% increased healing to every single target that has a Renewing Mist on them. And then again, just kind of going over this again, our Zen Pulse also does additional healing and can proc off our Vivify if targets have Renewing Mist on them. So again, Renewing Mist is very core to our kit. Okay, the next talent I want to talk about is Jadefire Stomp, and then also Ancient Teachings. So you should really be very focused. Mistweaver Monk and the way that we heal is pretty much all through these 4 nodes here. So if this is going to be kind of my next main point of this video. Outside of Renewing Mist, this is a portion of the tree that you should kind of study and really know how it works. So going into Jadefire Stomp here, 15-second cooldown, strike the ground, expose a path of Jade, you're going to do nature damage, and you're going to restore health to enemies caught in the path. That is the least important thing of pretty much the rest of what we're going to talk about here. So I'm not saying you forget that, but that's not important. The second portion of this is pretty important though. Your abilities have a 6% chance in resetting the cooldown of Jadefire Stomp while fighting within the path. So let's just take a look at what it is. So you throw it down on the ground, it does a burst of healing, it does a burst of damage. That's not very important. But what is important is that you're fighting within this pattern. And you don't want to step out over here and fight. You want to be literally on top of the pattern. And the reason for that is going to be down here in Awaken Jadefire. So your abilities reset Jadefire 100% more often. And then while within the Jadefire Stomp, your Tiger Palm strike twice and your Spinning Crane Kick heals 3 allies for 90% of the damage done. So this means you want you and your enemies to be in this pattern. And then when you use your Spinning Crane Kick here, you can see all these people are getting healed. And that is due to this pattern being on the ground and you and your enemies being within it. Now, the problem a lot of Mistweaver monks have is the tank will be pulling mobs and they'll throw out their Jadefire Stomp and the tank will pull the mobs over here. And now when the mobs are over here, your Jadefire Stomp is way back there. And you can see my Jadefire Stomp's on cooldown. So now I'm going to lose a ton of healing because I can't recast it. So you want to be very careful with that. And this also goes back to the second portion of Jadefire Stomp. While it's kind of important, your abilities have a 6% chance of resetting the cooldown of Jadefire Stomp while fighting within the path. So this means if we drop this and we kind of damage enemies, we can actually reset the cooldown. You can see the cooldown on Jadefire Stomp reset right there. That's because we were fighting enemies within the Jadefire Stomp. So that's very important to... I'm not saying you want to necessarily prioritize the reset of Jadefire Stomp, but it's something that you want to think about, and you don't want to have to move around too much without a reset. You always want a Jadefire Stomp to fall back on in case something happens. So if not much healing's going out and everybody's topped off, think about getting a reset in there. Now, another core thing that I haven't even talked about yet is Ancient Teachings. So we have 2 ways that we can heal through our damage. So the first one is Awaken Jadefire, and the second one is going to be Ancient Teachings. Now, Ancient Teachings is a buff that you have to track. So just to kind of show you what this looks like, we will throw down our Jadefire Stomp, and you can see in the top right-hand corner up here, Ancient Teachings, it's ticking down, and this is something that you're always going to want to keep up. And the reason you want to keep this up is because this is the main way that we do healing, is through Ancient Teachings and through our Awakened Jade Fire. All right, so we got lost in the sauce a little bit there. Let's just kind of recap everything. So what you want to be doing, for the most part, is keeping Renewing Mist up on all targets. You want to Jade Fire, and then you want to make sure your Ancient Teachings buff is up. See it ticking down up there? And then we just want to be doing all of our damage right here in the green circle, or in our green pattern. And then just know that you can reset your Jade Fire Stomp by doing damage within your pattern. Okay, let's kind of move on to like the next level of all this. So we know that we want to keep Renewing Mist up on our target. We know we want to throw down this pattern. We know we want to do damage within it. Now, how should we do our damage? How does that work? Your just damage profile in general. So we got two ways. Basically, you have Spinning Crane Kick, which is your AoE, and then we have a combination of Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick. So typically, the general rule of thumb is you'll Spinning Crane Kick at 5+ targets. Anything below 5 targets, you'll use Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, and Blackout Kick. So let's kind of talk about those really quick. So the cool thing about Spinning Crane Kick is literally you just press it, it does a channel, it does damage. There's not too much to talk about there. So let's talk about the more complicated one, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, and what that combo looks like. All right, so at 4 or less targets, you're trying to play around this Teachings of the Monastery. So Tiger Palm causes your next Blackout Kick to strike an additional time, stacking up to 4. And Blackout Kick also has a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on our Rising Sun Kick. So what this means is if we Tiger Palm before our Blackout Kick is going to do an additional charge of damage, or an additional proc of damage. Now, where this gets even more interesting is if we pair this with our Awakened Jade Fire. While you're within your Jade Fire Stomp, your Tiger Palm is going to strike twice. So now when you Tiger Palm, you're getting 2 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery instead of 1. So when you Tiger Palm once, now your Blackout Kick has 2 charges on it. So what this means is you want to always Tiger Palm twice before your next Blackout Kick. This will cause your Blackout Kick to strike 4 times. Now let's also go back to Ancient Concordance. So again, these 4 talents are almost everything with Mistweaver Monk. So again, I highly suggest you go back into these talents to understand how they work. So this talent here turns your Blackout Kick into an AoE kick. So Blackout Kick strikes 3 targets, and it has a 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick while within our Jade Fire Stomp. So if this turns Blackout Kick into an AoE ability, this means that we're now able to strike 3 targets with our Blackout Kick 4 times through Teachings of the Monastery. So to show you what that looks like, so what we're going to do, you can kind of see my abilities. I Jade Fire Stomped, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, and then watch our Blackout Kick here. It just striked all these targets 4 times. So what we just talked about here is the vast majority of Mistweaver Monk. If you can get that down, you can play Mistweaver Monk. So on paper, Mistweaver Monk looks very complicated, but in reality, once you get that core sort of play style down, that gameplay loop down, it's really, in my opinion, one of the easier healers to play. So let's quickly go over this one more time, just these 4 abilities, because this is what I really want you to take away if you're a new Mistweaver Monk, right? So we throw up a Renewing Mist on our target, we Jade Fire Stomp, we can Spinning Crane Kick inside if it's 5+ targets. If it's 4 or less, we can Rising Sun Kick into 2 Tiger Palms into a Blackout Kick. And then that sort of gameplay loop just restarts. Get our Renewing Mist back up, another Jade Fire Stomp, we can Spinning Crane Kick if we want, Rising Sun, Tiger, Blackout Kick. And the thing with Ancient Teachings is if you're keeping your Jade Fire Stomp down, this isn't something you're really going to have to worry about. It's always going to be up, basically. And you can kind of see here, I have my Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick into a macro here. We'll talk about that later in the video. But for now, that's why it's just showing as 1 button on my action bars. You'll probably have to get 3 on there to do what I just did. All right, now that's the core rotation, and there's also a few other twists that are kind of proc based that we'll kind of have to worry about in our rotation. So let's quickly go ahead and just cover some of our single target healing abilities. So sometimes if you have somebody who's about to die in a pinch, of course we have our Life Cocoon cooldown that we haven't talked about yet, but for the most part, I like to play around this Soothing Mist ability. And if you've never seen it before, basically you just press it and it channels. Let me put on somebody else. You see I'm basically channeling this Soothing Mist into this target. It's a channel. I can't move while casting it. It does a lot of single target healing. It's very efficient. But by itself, Soothing Mist doesn't do a ton of healing. But let's go back and read it again. So this heals the target over 7 seconds. It's a channel. Now the key portion of this is Enveloping Mist and Vivify may be cast instantly on the target. So let's figure out what those are really quick. So Vivify here is just going to be a big, strong single target heal. It's pretty expensive to use, but it does a lot of single target healing. And then we also have Enveloping Mist. So wraps a target in mist, healing for 140,000 over 7 seconds. And the main portion of this is going to increase the healing received from your other spells by 40%. So this means if we cast a Soothing Mist into an Enveloping Mist, that means our Vivifies that we just talked about are going to be beefed by 40 additional percent. And if we back up again, Soothing Mist makes these two abilities instant cast. So we kind of have a combo here. If you kind of watch my action tracker here, I have a macro that will turn Soothing Mist into an Enveloping Mist into Vivify spams. And you can kind of see here, I'm doing all this single target healing in one button. And this is really good if you have a target at like 20% health that you need to quickly top, because it takes all the complexity out of it if you just put it into like a one button macro. Again, this is something that we'll cover later if you want to get the macro. But for now, at the core of this, just know what's happening here. I'll bring out these 3 abilities over here on the side. We're casting Soothing Mist into Enveloping Mist into Vivify. That's all we're doing. And then we're just spamming Vivifies after that. And this channel that we just talked about here is probably the most single target burst healing in the game. If you can get 2 or 3 Vivifies off, I mean, you're topping targets in like 2 seconds from 10% health to 100% health. It's a ton of healing. So going back to recap again, you have your Renewing Mist little mini game that you're doing. You have your damage that you're doing within your Jadefire Stomp. And then you also have a single target healing sort of combo that you can pull off if an ally gets very low on health. Now, another thing I want to talk about here is this green bar here. That is your Zen Pulse. So our next Vivify, where'd it go? Right here. Your next Vivify will trigger a Zen Pulse on your target and all allies with Renewing Mist. So when that pops up, that means your next Vivify is going to proc this talent here, Zen Pulse. Now, when you pair this with this Vivification talent here, this is going to make Vivify instant cast. So typically, when that green bar pops up, your next Vivify is almost always going to be instant cast. And then all targets that have Renewing Mist are also going to get a ton of burst healing through that Zen Pulse talent. So that is something that will pop up as you're doing your damage rotation, your healing, is you're going to get some procs that pop up and you got to kind of know what to do with them. So that's the green one. There's also a yellow one on the left that will pop up, and that's going to be through Strength of the Black Ox here. That's just going to, we kind of talked about this already, but that's just going to basically beef up your next Enveloping Mist, and it's going to put out an Absorb Shield. So when that pops up, that's another button that you're going to be pressing. That's another proc that pops up, and that is brand new to Mistweaver. Okay, that's all I'm going to cover in terms of your basic damage and healing rotation. Let's go ahead and get into some cooldowns now. All right, one of your main cooldowns is going to be Sheelan's Gift here. And the way this works is while you're in combat, these mists of clouds will come out, and you don't have to run over them or anything. Your character will collect them automatically. But these clouds can then be redistributed out on your party to do a ton of burst healing, and this will stack up to 10 stacks maximum. So I'll just kind of show you guys. I just built up 7 charges of it. And it's these little clouds here on the ground that will disappear after some time. But basically what you can do is absorb those up, and it will do a bunch of burst healing. This will do, at max stacks, this is going to be taking people from 25% to 100%. So a very strong healing cooldown for sure. Another major cooldown we have is Invoke Chi-Chi the Red Crane. This is on a 1-minute cooldown. And this is very powerful because of the low cooldowns. So you can pretty much, in higher Mythic Plus dungeons, have this up for every single pool, which is very nice. It's basically a crane that comes out, and it just does a ton of raw passive healing as you do your normal damage rotation. This will also put up a stacking effect reducing the cast time of our enveloping mist by 30%, 33%. So typically this is going to be something that you just kind of want to pop on pull. Typically that's the most dangerous part of a Mythic Plus dungeon, is that first initial pull. So you can just kind of throw this out and this will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Another major cooldown that we have here is Revival. This is on a 3-minute cooldown, and it does a moderate amount of healing. It does quite a bit, but for the most part, people use this as a dispel. So this will clear 3 harmful magic, all poison, and all disease effects on your entire party. So this is going to be really good, especially this season due to the Devour affix that we now have to worry about. Revival will completely remove the absorb shields that you have to heal through. So, just another incentive to play Mistweaver Monk there. And then we also, of course, have the new Celestial Conduit on a 1.5-minute cooldown. Another very low cooldown ability, just does a ton of healing and damage. Basically, it is a small channel as well. Okay, now let's briefly just talk about utility. So Mistweaver Monk doesn't bring a insane amount of utility. I mean, we do have, for example, Mystic Touch here, which is a passive. You damage weakens the target's increasing physical damage taken by 5%. So this is going to be very good with like a physical damage composition. So if you run with like Feral Druid, maybe Hunter or Warrior, that's where you're going to see Mistweaver Monk kind of fit into a composition better. So we don't have any sort of class buff or party buff. This is pretty much all we bring in terms of just a flat stat buff to the group. Now, in terms of like party buffs, we don't bring a whole lot to the table. We don't bring a Lust. We don't bring a Battle Res, which is unfortunate. But I would say Mistweaver Monk has the best mobility in the game. So that makes it a little bit easier to play than a lot of other healers. And then we also have the best mob control. I don't know about the best, but we're up there in the top with the best mob control. And one of the main reasons for that is going to be Ring of Peace here on a 45-second cooldown. You throw a ring on the ground and it knocks everybody out of the ring. Show you what that looks like. This can be kind of a safe space. This doesn't obviously knock out like bosses. There's certain elite mobs this won't knock out either. But regardless, a very strong talent. And then you can also use it to interrupt casts. So this can kind of work as a AoE stop for your group. And then we also have a leg sweep here. So to show you what it looks like. Just press it and it does like an AoE kick. And it just stuns all the mobs around you. And then as our main interrupt, of course, we do have Spearhand Strike, which is on a very low cooldown. Not the lowest of all healers, but still very low at 15 seconds. Then to further add to our utility, we also have a Detox, which is one of the better dispels in the game. Removes all magic, poison, and disease effects from the target. This is really nice because, something like, let's just say a priest doesn't have a poison dispel. And a poison dispel is required, I believe, in 5 of the 8 Mythic Plus dungeons in this rotation. So Mistweaver Monk is going to fit the bill perfectly for that. So, another great reason to play Mistweaver Monk right now. And then I guess I'll just go ahead and throw defensives into this really quick. So we have our Fortifying Brew. Because, we don't have hardly any defensives really. We just have a couple. We have Fortifying Brew at a 1.5-minute cooldown. Going to increase our maximum health and reduce all damage that we take by 20%. So very strong. And then we also have Life Cocoon on a 1.3-minute cooldown through talents. And basically it's just going to put a huge absorb shield on a target if they are getting low on health. So to show you what that looks like. See, it puts this big absorb shield out. And this is going to be really nice to have if, somebody's in a pinch. You have a target, you have an ally who's about to die and you just need to try to save them as quickly as possible. And, it also has the low cooldown on it as well. So this is something that you can have up for pretty much every pull. And then, of course, we have the roll that we talked about already with 3 charges with the Lighter of Air, which is going to give you the sort of short jump after every single time you roll. If you did skip that section, you can roll and then press spacebar and you can get a small dash now. So just to cover that again. And then we also have the Tiger's Lust, which is on a 30-second cooldown. This is going to increase a target's move speed by 70% for 6 seconds. Okay, let's just quickly talk about a few weak auras and then maybe a few macros, and then we'll kind of close out the video here. So in terms of weak auras, you might have seen when I had my Jadefire Stomp down, you always want to be in your Jadefire Stomp when you're fighting. You can kind of see I have these little triangles here that are glowing white. When I step out, they go blue. So basically this is telling me whether or not I'm in my Jadefire Stomp. because it's not super obvious when you're in a pack and there's a ton of mobs. Sometimes you can't see your pattern on the ground. So by having this up kind of as like the top layer on your screen, you can always tell whether or not you're in your Jadefire or not. So this add-on, or this weak R, excuse me, is called Feline Helper. I'll leave a link in the description on where you can find either this one or a similar one. And then I also have another weak R here that will track your Ancient Teachings buff. So just to make sure that you always have it up, this is something that you do want to track just to make sure, you know, that you're always keeping the buff up to heal through your damage. I will also put a link to this in the description of the video. All right, now let's just talk about our final two macros that we kind of did in the video and how those work, and, you know, some edits. If you want to kind of change things around, you can do that. I'll also put these in the description of the video. So the first one we're going to talk about is this one here on 4. Is going to be the Rising Sun kick paired with Tiger Palm and Blackout. So you can see here, it's just a simple cast sequence macro, which means it's just going to go and loop through these abilities, and once you Blackout kick, it'll just restart. And the reset equals 3 here just means after 3 seconds of not pressing a button, it'll reset by itself, basically. So I will put this macro in the description of the video. And again, to show you what it does is you can see my 4 button here. It'll Rising Sun into 2 Tiger Palms, which will proc 4 stacks of Teaching of the Monastery, which means we can now Blackout kick 4 times. And then the final one I'm going to talk about is the single target healing macro. This is the Soothing Mist into an Enveloping Mist into Vivify spams. So the way this works, this kind of confused people in the last time I did this. The macro is kind of built to be spammed. So it has a reset equal to 1. And this is kind of important because if you mess up the macro, for whatever reason, sometimes this macro will reset in the middle of channeling it. If you take damage or if something cancels the effect, you want it to quickly reset so you can get back to Soothing Mist. So that's why I have it to reset at 1 second. You can change that to 2-3 seconds to whatever you want. But again, the way it works is you start a Soothing Mist channel, and then you'll cast an Enveloping Mist into 3 Vivifies. Then after 3 Vivifies, your Soothing Mist channel will run out. So then it'll just kind of loop back to a Soothing Mist, and you can just kind of go through that loop over and over again. If you do use this macro, I highly recommend to put 2 of them on your bar, because there are situations like I talked about just a second ago. Sometimes the cast can get messed up and you can be stuck accidentally hard casting an Enveloping Mist. And, you know, that's wasting 1 or 2 globals there that can like cause somebody to die. So I always have a backup of this macro. If this macro fails for whatever reason, I can always rely on this one's sitting right next to it, right? That might not make sense right now, but as you use this macro a little bit, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. And I almost forgot one more thing here. I guess this will be the last chapter of the video, is our Mana Tea ability. So every X amount of mana that we spend, we will gain 1 stack of Mana Tea. It looks like 77,000 mana. We'll get this 1 stack of Mana Tea that we can then consume to restore some of our mana. So this is something that will cap out at 20 charges. So this is something that you want to stay on top of. And typically it's recommended to just drink a Mana Tea in between pack. So just to quickly show you guys what that looks like, we'll come in here, cast some abilities. You can see it's my shift 5 here. As I spend mana, we're at 2 stacks right now. Let me spend mana a little bit faster here. We're at 3 stacks, 4 stacks. Just kind of spamming my Vivify now. 5 stacks. And you can see we've used quite a bit of mana. So I'm going to use my Mana Tea now. And you can see my cast bar is bugged out for some reason on retail, but you can see we just restored to full mana basically. Again, that caps out at 20 stacks, so it is something that you do want to stay on top of. And I guess one final thing here that I haven't talked about, this is actually going to be the last thing, I promise, is Chi Burst. So a lot of people always ask about when's the best time to use Chi Burst. I typically like to use it whenever I need a reset on my Jadefire Stomp, because this has a high % chance to basically reset your Jadefire Stomp through talents, right? So we can Jadefire Stomp, and I'll just press it here. And we got unlucky there. It didn't reset our Jadefire Stomp. It has like a 25% chance to do it on 4 targets. But most of the time, on a big pool where there's a whole bunch of targets, this will almost always reset your Jadefire Stomp. All right, let's try to give it one more test here, see if we can get it to reset our Jadefire Stomp. And there we go. You see we pressed Chi Burst, it reset our Jade Fire Stomp. Again, typically in bigger pools, you're going to see it reset more often. Okay, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. I also have some socials in the description of the video. We got a Discord. We got all sorts of stuff down there if you guys want to check that out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the next one.